I still remember the first time her voice found me low, deliberate, the kind that made silence feel like something you could touch. It was past 8, the university corridors half-lit and echoing with the hum of vending machines. She stood by her office door, one hand on the frame, a thin ribbon of light spilling across her face. I wasn't supposed to be there. I'd only meant to drop off the draft of my thesis, nothing more. But she looked up before I could leave it on her desk. "Stay a minute," she said. Not a command. Not quite an invitation either. Her name was Professor Hale, 40-something, maybe 45, though no one ever seemed certain. She had that kind of poise that made age feel irrelevant. Every gesture was slow, considered, as if she'd learned that rushing was a kind of weakness. I stepped inside. Her office smelled faintly of paper, old perfume, and rain on the window ledge. Books lined every wall, some open-faced, spine-broken, like they'd been loved too hard. She closed her laptop, eyes catching mine for a moment too long. "You always linger in the doorway," she said softly. "Afraid of something?" I smiled, unsure if it showed. "Maybe just respectful." Her lips curved. "That's rare." She moved past me to reach a file on a high shelf, her sleeve brushing against my arm, not accidental, not intentional either. My breath caught before I could help it. The air between us seemed to change texture, like static before a storm. I tried to focus on the floor, but she turned, file in hand, close enough that I could see the fine lines around her eyes. They didn't age her, they deepened her. "You write like someone twice your age," she murmured, eyes scanning my paper. "And look at me like someone half of it." There was no accusation in her tone, just quiet amusement, like she'd already read the next few pages of this story and didn't know whether to close the book or keep reading. "I didn't mean to." She cut me off gently. "Don't apologize for looking. Just don't pretend it's nothing." Her honesty landed somewhere between a touch and a confession. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was heavy, alive. My throat tightened with things I didn't know how to say. She placed the paper on her desk, leaned against it, and studied me, not as a professor, not even as a woman evaluating a man, but as someone who recognized something in another person, and didn't quite trust it yet. Outside, thunder rolled distantly. The fluorescent light flickered once, then steadied. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, almost absently, "what people look like when no one's watching them?" I nodded. "All the time." She tilted her head. "Then maybe that's why you write." For a moment, neither of us moved. The world outside the office, the rain, the hum, the hallways, all fell away. All that remained was the quiet pulse of her presence, the space between our breaths narrowing. Her hand grazed mine when she passed me the file, just a brush of skin, but enough to send something warm and frightening through me. And then, a sharp knock on the half-open door. We both turned. The light seemed to shift again, reality slipping back into place. "Professor Hale," a voice called from the hallway. "You left your phone in the lecture hall." Her expression didn't change, but her hand pulled away, slow, deliberate, leaving the ghost of her touch on my skin. When the door opened wider, she smiled, calm, composed, as though nothing had happened. But I saw it then, in her eyes, in the stillness that followed, something had. And neither of us could pretend it hadn't. The next day, I told myself I wouldn't linger again. I even left my coffee half-finished, as if hurrying would somehow make me immune to her. But when she asked if I could help organize the old manuscripts in the literature archive, I said yes before the question had even settled between us. The room was quiet except for the hum of the dehumidifier and the soft rustle of aging pages. She moved gracefully, sleeves rolled up, hair loose for once, less professor, more woman. I tried not to look, but she made looking inevitable. "Careful with that one," she said, glancing at the fragile spine of a book I was holding. "It's older than both of us put together." I smiled faintly. Barely. She gave me that look again, the one that felt like a private joke no one else would understand. But her expression changed, almost imperceptibly, when I met her eyes too long. Something shuttered behind her calm. Were you always this persistent? She asked. I'm not sure I am, I said quietly. Maybe just curious. Her lips parted, then closed again. She went back to sorting papers, fingers trembling slightly when they brushed mine. We didn't speak for a while after that. The silence was the kind that filled the air rather than emptied it. She stood beside me, close enough that the fabric of her blouse brushed against my arm each time she reached forward. My heart kept betraying me, beating too loudly in the stillness, responding to things I hadn't earned the right to feel. I knew her reputation, brilliant, distant, twice divorced. Students admired her, colleagues respected her, but no one ever stayed. People said she was too proud, too composed. Maybe that's what drew me in, that underneath all that restraint was someone who didn't quite believe in tenderness anymore. She caught me watching her once, and for the first time, didn't look away. You shouldn't, she said softly. I know. It never ends well, she added. I wasn't thinking about the ending. Her breath hitched, barely, and she turned away, pretending to read the faded text in front of her. I pretended not to notice how her hands trembled slightly when she adjusted her glasses. It should have stopped there. But when the stack of books she was reaching for began to slip, I caught them, and for a second, caught her too. My hand found her waist, steadying her. Her perfume was faint, clean, familiar, like something I'd smelled once in a memory. We froze like that, too aware of the space where our bodies almost met. Thank you, she murmured, her voice smaller now. I didn't answer. Couldn't. The moment stretched, not long, not short, just enough for something to change. Her hand rested briefly on mine, as if to reclaim her balance. But when she let go, she didn't step back right away. And in that suspended second, that quiet, dangerous pause, we both knew something irreversible had begun. It happened late, later than it should have. The building was nearly empty, the sky outside the archive windows painted with the soft grey of an approaching storm. We'd been cataloguing the last of the old manuscripts, neither of us saying much. Every sound, a page turning, a pen tapping, felt too loud. She sat beside me, closer than usual, reading annotations aloud in that low, deliberate voice that always seemed to find its way under my skin. You have a good eye for detail, she said, almost absently. I looked up. I learned it from watching you. She smiled, faint, reluctant. That's not always a compliment. Her tone tried to sound light, but her fingers gave her away, tightening around the edge of a page, lingering too long before turning it. Lightning flared outside, and for a second, the whole room flashed white. The power flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the space, leaving only the dim glow from her phone screen. I heard her breath, quiet, steady. She laughed softly. Of course. Always when we're in the middle of something. Her voice, closer now, brushed against the dark. I reached out instinctively, and my hand found her arm, warm, smooth, real. It's okay, she whispered, though neither of us had moved. Her face was just a faint outline in the shifting light. I could smell rain on her skin, a trace of jasmine, ink from her pen. My pulse was too loud in my ears. I should have pulled away. Instead, my thumb moved, a small, thoughtless motion against her wrist. Her breath hitched. Don't, she said, but it wasn't a command. It was a plea caught halfway between want and warning. The air felt charged, too still, like the pause before thunder. And then, a sudden burst of light. The door creaked open. Professor Hale. A voice, male, sharp, cut through the quiet. You're still here. I thought you'd locked up. We both turned. It was another faculty member, someone from her department. His gaze flicked between us, her standing too close, my hand still halfway between reaching and retreating. She cleared her throat. Just finishing up. My assistant here was helping with the manuscripts. The word assistant stung more than I expected. The man nodded slowly, eyes narrowing just slightly before he left again, muttering something about the storm. The door shut. Silence followed, thick and unsteady. She finally exhaled, shoulders lowering. That, she murmured, was almost very stupid. I tried to find my voice. Would it have been? Her eyes met mine, steady now, but her pupils wide, dark with something she didn't name. Yes, she said, almost whispering. Because I would have let it happen. The storm outside broke, thunder rolling, rain crashing against the windows. She stepped back, but not far enough to erase what had just passed between us. And even as she turned away, I knew, distance wouldn't undo this. We were already too close, the storm had passed, but something between us hadn't. Days went by where we pretended nothing had changed, polite greetings, measured distance, words chosen too carefully. But the air between us never cooled. It only thickened, waiting for one of us to break. That moment came on a Thursday evening. Her office door was open again, the light low, her hair tied up but falling loose at the edges, the kind of imperfection that made her seem almost human. I'd come to return a book, or that's what I told myself. The truth was simpler, I missed her voice. She looked up from her desk, surprised but not displeased. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. I know, I replied. She set her pen down, folded her hands. Then why are you? I hesitated. Because pretending this isn't happening feels worse. Her eyes flickered, not shock, not anger. Something else. You think it's that simple? No, I said. But I also think it's real. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The ticking of the clock filled the room, steady and cruel. She stood, crossing the short distance between us, her perfume a soft trail of warmth in the air. You don't know what you're doing, she murmured, close enough that her breath touched my jaw. I've lived long enough to know how this ends. Then let me live the mistake, I said, voice shaking. Her hand lifted, almost against her will, brushing my hair from my forehead. The touch was small, almost motherly, except it wasn't. Her fingers lingered, tracing the edge of my cheek, stopping just before my mouth. Don't, she whispered, even as her hand stayed where it was. Please. I should have stepped back. I didn't. You look at me, I said, like you're asking for permission to want something you already do. Her eyes closed briefly, a surrender without words. You shouldn't say things like that. But they are true. Her shoulders rose and fell, slow, uneven. When she opened her eyes again, something had broken through, the kind of fear that only comes from wanting too much. You think this is about wanting, she said, voice barely a breath. It's about undoing. And I've already undone enough in my life. Then stop running, I said softly. Just stop. The words hung there. She stepped forward until the space between us disappeared. My back brushed against the edge of her desk, her hand rested on it beside me, fingers trembling. I could feel the heat from her skin through the thin sleeve of my shirt. Her eyes flicked down to my lips, then away, then back again, a war she was losing by inches. Say something, I whispered. She didn't. Instead, she leaned closer, until her breath was against my ear, the faintest tremor in her voice. If I kiss you, she said, I won't stop there. And before I could answer, before anything could happen, a knock came at the door. Sharp. Sudden. Too late. The knock at the door that night wasn't just bad timing, it was the beginning of the unraveling. She never opened it. The sound alone was enough to pull her away, like a reflex learned from too many Neruins. When it stopped, she just stood there, still, silent, hand hovering over the desk where mine had just been. "Who was that?" I asked. She shook her head, eyes fixed on nothing. "It doesn't matter." But it did. The next day, she didn't come to class. Her office stayed locked, blinds drawn. I told myself I'd respect her space, but by the second evening, I was outside her door again, the same light leaking through the cracks, the same silence holding its breath. When she finally opened it, she looked different, tired, guarded, the kind of tired that isn't about sleep. "You shouldn't keep showing up like this," she said. "I wouldn't," I replied, "if you'd stop disappearing." Her lips parted, a protest half formed, then gone. She stepped aside, letting me in, though neither of us said the word come. Books still lined the walls, but now the desk was clear, too clear. A single photo frame sat face down beside her lamp. "What happened?" I asked. She hesitated. Then, quietly, "That knock. It was my ex-husband." I froze. "He came to bring back some things. Apparently, word's gotten around about us." "Us?" I repeated. Her voice cracked just slightly. "He saw you leave my office last week. He teaches 2 floors down. And now he's implying things to the department head." The words hit harder than I expected. "You think he'll—" "He doesn't have to do anything," she interrupted, voice low. "Rumor is enough." She pressed her palms to her temples, the tension visible even in the lines of her neck. "You don't understand what this could cost me." "I understand more than you think," I said. "Do you?" she snapped, not out of anger, but out of fear that had nowhere else to go. "You'll leave this program one day. I'll still be here. Branded. Judged. Everything I've built." Her voice faltered. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it back before I could touch it. The rejection wasn't cruel, it was desperate. For a long moment, the only sound was her breathing. Slow. Unsteady. Then she whispered, "I wasn't lying that night. When I said I would have let it happen." Her confession hung there, too raw, too late. "Then why not now?" I asked. She looked up, eyes wet but unwavering. "Because this time, I'd mean it." And with that, she stepped closer, so close her shoulder brushed mine as she passed, heading for the door. But just before she opened it, she stopped, her back still to me, and said, almost to herself, "If you come back again, I won't stop you." Then she left me there, surrounded by the scent of rain and the echo of her words, an invitation and a warning, indistinguishable from each other. I told myself I wouldn't go back. I meant it, right up until I saw her light on again. It was past midnight, the building empty except for that one flicker of warmth behind her blinds. The kind of light you notice even when you're trying not to. I knocked once, softly. No answer. The handle turned anyway. She was there, sitting by the window, hair loose, a glass of wine untouched beside a stack of papers she wasn't reading. She looked at me without surprise, only exhaustion, the kind that comes after too many careful days. "You came," she said, voice low. "You told me not to," I answered. She smiled faintly. "And you listen about as well as I do." I closed the door behind me. The silence between us felt heavier than words could carry. I took a step closer, and she didn't move. "You shouldn't have to lose everything because of me," I said. She tilted her head, studying me. "And you think staying away would change that?" "I think it might save you." Her laugh was soft, bitter. "You still think this is about saving, don't you? You're young, you still believe desire is something you can reason with." She stood then, slow, deliberate, crossing the short space between us until she was close enough that I could see the faint tremor in her hands. Every time I told myself no, she said, I was lying. Her fingers brushed my collarbone, stopping there, just resting, neither pulling nor pushing away. The room felt smaller, the air warmer. I don't want to ruin you, she whispered. You won't. Her hand moved higher, tracing the side of my neck. I caught her wrist, not to stop her, but to feel the pulse there. It beat faster than mine. I don't know how to do this right, I said. Then don't, she murmured. Just be here. For a moment, everything stilled, the world outside, the hum of the lights, even breath itself. Our foreheads almost touched, a single heartbeat away from something that would rewrite everything. But she stopped first. Eyes closed, she exhaled a shaky breath and stepped back, as if the air itself had turned to glass. Sometimes, she said, the only way to keep something is not to take it. I nodded, though I hated how much I understood. She reached up, fingers brushing my cheek, a touch that said everything she wouldn't allow herself to speak. You'll forget me, she whispered. I already tried. Her eyes softened then, the kind of look that comes when you finally accept the truth. Love and restraint are sometimes the same thing. And in that quiet, standing too close but not close enough, I knew we'd made our choice, not to have each other, but to remember that we could have. When I left, she didn't stop me. She just stood there by the window, light spilling around her, looking like someone who'd finally learned how to let go. And hate it had been weeks since that night, the one that ended before it began. The semester slipped quietly toward its end, the air warming, the campus filling again with voices that didn't belong to us anymore. I saw her sometimes across the courtyard or in passing through the library, small, almost accidental glimpses. We didn't speak. We didn't have to. There was something cleaner about the silence now, as if it had stopped punishing us and started forgiving us instead. Then one afternoon, near graduation, I found her again, or maybe she found me. She was sitting alone on a bench by the old stone fountain, the sunlight catching on her hair. A soft breeze carried the scent of her perfume, before I even saw her face. I hesitated. But when she looked up and smiled, it wasn't the careful smile she used in class. It was something simpler, tired in the best way, like someone finally ready to stop running. Thought you'd vanished, she said. Almost did, I replied. Almost, she echoed, smiling faintly. We sat in the easy quiet that had always belonged to us, the kind that didn't need fixing. Her hand rested on the bench beside mine, not touching, but close enough that the warmth of her skin crept through the space between us. Did you get the job offer? She asked after a while. I nodded. Out of state. I'll leave in a few weeks. Good, she said softly. Then, almost a whisper, you should go. I looked at her. And you? She shrugged lightly. I'll stay. Teach. Try not to repeat my mistakes. Her tone was half a joke, half confession. I turned my hand over on the bench, close enough that our fingers brushed, hesitant, then steady. She didn't move away this time. Was it a mistake? I asked quietly. She looked at our hands, then at me. No, she said. It was something that reminded me I could still feel. I just needed to learn when to stop reaching. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sunlight shifted, shadows moved across her face. She reached up, smoothing a stray strand of hair behind her ear, and then, without thinking, she leaned forward. Our foreheads touched. Not a kiss, something softer. A goodbye dressed as peace. I'll miss you, I whispered. She smiled, eyes closed. You'll write about me. Maybe. Good. Then I'll stay somewhere in the words. Her hand slid into mine, fingers fitting like a memory that had been waiting to return. We sat like that until the sun dipped lower, until the noise of the campus faded into something gentle and far away. No promises. No more pretending. Just a quiet kind of knowing that some connections don't fade, they simply change shape. When I finally stood, she didn't stop me. But when I looked back once, she was still watching, that same faint smile, the one that said everything that didn't need saying. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?